Right now, this winter storm is not weakening, it's reorganizing. Over the last several hours, forecast models have shifted, snow totals are creeping higher, wind projections are strengthening, and the storm track has adjusted just enough to expand the impact zone. What looked like a manageable system yesterday is becoming something far more serious. And here's the problem. The most significant changes aren't dramatic. They're subtle, small adjustments in temperature, pressure, and timing that can completely transform conditions on the ground. In this update, we are breaking down what changed, why this threat is growing by the hour, and which areas now face a much higher risk than originally expected. Because once this system locks in, conditions could deteriorate faster than many are prepared for. Let's get into it. 1. Small shifts create big impacts. Winter storms rarely become dangerous in dramatic fashion. They evolve quietly. Overnight, this system didn't explode on the map. It shifted slightly, just enough to reposition the cold air and expand the heavy snow zone. That small adjustment changes outcomes. A narrow temperature difference determines whether you get cold rain, heavy snow, or damaging ice. Areas that were expected to see minor accumulation are now under stronger lift and higher snowfall rates. When cold air holds firm and moisture feeds efficiently, totals climb quickly. In winter weather, a 50-mile shift is not minor. It's the difference between inconvenience and disruption. And right now, those subtle changes are stacking in a direction that increases impact. And 2. Rapid intensification is the real concern. A strong storm is one thing. A storm that strengthens faster than expected is another. Right now, this system is showing signs of organizing more efficiently. Pressure is trending lower. Energy aloft is aligning. Moisture transport is increasing. When those pieces lock together, snowfall rates can surge quickly. Instead of steady accumulation, you get intense bursts that overwhelm roads in a short window. Conditions can deteriorate in under an hour. Winds increase, visibility drops, and response time shrinks. The real concern is not just how much falls, it's how fast it happens, and that rate of change is moving in the wrong direction. 3. Timing will decide the impact. In winter weather, timing can be just as important as intensity. It's a heavy snow band in the middle of the night is disruptive. The same band during peak travel hours becomes dangerous. Right now, projections suggest the heaviest precipitation could align with high traffic periods. That changes everything. Roads that are merely wet beforehand can turn snow-covered in minutes. Commuters get caught mid-route. Delays compound quickly. When snowfall rates increase during busy hours, recovery becomes harder and risk rises sharply. This storm's timing may amplify its impact, and if that window locks in, disruption will spread faster than many expect. 4. Wind changes the entire equation. Snowfall totals often dominate the headlines, but wind is what transforms a winter storm from disruptive to dangerous. On its own, several inches of snow can be managed, roads can be treated, plows can operate effectively. Visibility remains workable. But when strong wind enters the equation, the situation shifts quickly. As this system strengthens, the pressure gradient tightens. That tightening increases wind speeds across a wider area. Gusts in the 35 to 45 mile per hour range may not sound extreme, but when combined with fresh, dry snow, they create blowing and drifting that dramatically reduces visibility. Even after plows clear main routes, wind can redeposit snow within minutes. What was possible becomes hazardous again. Blowing snow is especially dangerous because it creates rapidly changing conditions. One moment, visibility may be acceptable. The next, it can drop to near zero in open areas and along highways. Drivers don't get much warning. That sudden loss of visibility is what leads to chain reaction slowdowns and accidents. And wind also increases structural stress. Power lines and tree limbs that might withstand snowfall alone can become vulnerable when gusts intensify. If ice is involved in any corridor of this system, even light accumulation combined with wind can increase the risk of outages. And when temperatures remain below freezing, restoration becomes slower and more complicated. Another factor is wind chill. As cold air deepens behind the storm, strong gusts can push apparent temperatures well below the actual reading. That increases exposure risk for anyone stranded or forced to remain outdoors for extended periods. It also hardens surfaces quickly, allowing slush to refreeze and making travel even more difficult. Perhaps the most important detail is that wind extends the storm's impact beyond the moment snowfall ends. Even after the main precipitation shield moves out, gusts can continue blowing loose snow across roads, maintaining reduced visibility and prolonging hazardous conditions. In that sense, wind keeps the storm alive longer than totals alone would suggest. Right now, projections show wind potential trending slightly higher than earlier estimates. Not dramatically, but enough to matter. And when wind strength increases at the same time, snowfall rates intensify. Impacts compound rather than simply add together. That is why this storm's growing threat cannot be measured by snowfall maps alone. Wind changes the equation entirely. 5. Ice is the hidden threat. When people think of winter storms, they imagine heavy snow piling up on roads and rooftops. Snow is visible, it's measurable, it gives clear signals of impact. But ice is different. On ice often develops quietly, and when it does, it can create more severe disruption than snowfall alone. Freezing rain occurs when a shallow layer of cold air sits at the surface, while warmer air moves in above it. Precipitation falls as rain, but it freezes on contact with roads, trees, power lines, and sidewalks. The result is a nearly invisible glaze that transforms ordinary surfaces into hazards within minutes. What makes ice especially dangerous is how little it takes to cause problems. 1/10 of an inch may not look dramatic on a forecast map, yet that thin coating can snap small branches, stress utility lines, and make untreated roads nearly impossible to navigate. Unlike snow, which can be plowed and treated more effectively, ice bonds tightly to surfaces. Removal is slower, recovery takes longer. This storm setup supports a narrow corridor where temperatures may hover right near freezing. That borderline zone is critical. If surface temperatures dip just slightly lower, rain becomes freezing rain. A minor shift in storm track or cold air depth could expand that icy region. That uncertainty increases concern because ice impacts are highly localized but severe where they occur. Driving on snow allows some traction. Driving on ice often does not. Vehicles lose control quickly, even at low speeds. Emergency response times lengthen. Accidents multiply in short windows. And when ice accumulates on trees and lines, wind becomes a multiplier. Gusts interacting with coated branches increase the likelihood of scattered outages. Another challenge is perception. Ice does not always appear dramatic at first glance. Roads can look merely wet under certain lighting, but beneath the surface lies a frozen layer that tires cannot grip. That subtle danger often catches people off guard. Right now, model guidance suggests the potential for a confined but meaningful freezing rain zone within this broader winter system. It may not impact everyone, but where it does develop, disruption could exceed snowfall-related effects. That is why this storm must be monitored, not only for snow totals, but for temperature profiles near the surface. Ice does not need headlines to cause serious problems. It only needs the right conditions. 6. The pattern is not finished. One storm by itself can be disruptive, but when the larger atmospheric pattern remains active, the concern shifts from a single event to a sustained stretch of volatility. That is what makes this situation more complex than it may appear at first glance. This system is not forming in isolation. It is developing within a broader winter pattern that continues to support cold air intrusion and repeated storm tracks across similar regions. The jet stream remains amplified. Cold air is entrenched across key areas, and the overall flow pattern favors additional disturbances riding along the same corridor. When the pattern stays locked in like this, recovery windows shrink. After a storm exits, communities typically rely on a brief calm period to clear roads, restore power, and reset operations. But if another wave approaches before full recovery, stress compounds. Snow from the first system may still be on the ground when the next arrives. Temperatures may not moderate enough to melt or reduce accumulation. Then infrastructure fatigue increases. Another important detail is ground conditions. When cold air persists, surfaces remain frozen. That means each subsequent system starts from a colder baseline. Snow bonds more efficiently. Ice forms more readily. Drainage slows. Even moderate precipitation can create outsized impacts when prior cold has hardened the landscape. Long-range guidance suggests the upper-level pattern will remain supportive of additional troughs moving through. While it is too early to pinpoint exact timing or totals for future systems, the signal for continued activity is present. That does not guarantee extreme outcomes, but it does increase the likelihood of repeated winter threats. Patterns matter because they set the stage. Individual storms are actors within that stage. When the environment favors repetition, the preparation cannot end with the first event. Another factor is psychological fatigue. When storms come in clusters, people begin to underestimate subsequent threats. Familiarity can breed complacency, but each system behaves differently. A weaker storm following a stronger one can still cause major issues if infrastructure is already strained. Utility crews, transportation departments, and emergency managers track patterns closely for this reason. Not just to respond to one storm, but to anticipate cumulative impact. When the atmosphere remains active, resources must be allocated carefully to avoid being stretched thin. Right now, the data does not suggest a quick shift to a quiet pattern. Instead, it points toward continued cold air availability and an active storm corridor. As that means this growing winter threat may be part of something larger rather than a standalone episode. And when a pattern supports repetition, awareness must extend beyond the immediate forecast window. Because sometimes the bigger story is not just the storm in front of us, it is the sequence that may follow. 7. Preparation is the only real advantage. When a winter threat grows gradually, it can create a false sense of control. Each update feels incremental. Each shift seems manageable. But storms do not operate on comfort levels. They operate on physics. And once conditions begin to deteriorate, the window for calm decision-making narrows quickly. Preparation is not about panic. It is about positioning yourself ahead of the storm instead of reacting to it. One of the most common mistakes people make is waiting for certainty. They want a final snowfall number, a confirmed track, a definitive warning. But winter systems evolve in real time. By the moment everything is fully confirmed, impacts are often already underway. Preparedness begins with understanding that forecasts describe probabilities, not guarantees. When trends consistently move towards stronger outcomes, heavier totals, faster intensification, expanding wind fields, the responsible response is not fear. It is adjustment. Travel decisions are often the first critical factor. Roads do not become hazardous gradually. They often transition quickly. Wet pavement can turn snow-covered within a short burst of heavy precipitation. Visibility can collapse in open stretches where wind accelerates. When that shift happens during peak travel windows, congestion magnifies the risk. Avoiding unnecessary movement during those critical hours is one of the simplest but most effective safeguards. Power reliability is another consideration. Even scattered outages can disrupt heating, communication, and daily operations. Charging devices in advance, checking backup lighting, and ensuring access to essential supplies can turn a potential emergency into a manageable inconvenience. These are small actions that carry disproportionate value when conditions worsen. Another overlooked aspect is mental readiness. When people expect inconvenience but encounter intensity, stress levels spike. Clear expectations reduce reactionary decisions. Knowing that snowfall rates may surge or that wind could prolong hazardous conditions allows for steadier judgment when the storm arrives. It is also important to monitor reliable updates. Winter systems are dynamic. Bands shift. Totals adjust. Timing windows tighten. Staying informed through trusted sources ensures that decisions reflect current conditions rather than outdated projections. The difference between a smooth response and chaos often lies in awareness. Community awareness matters as well. Checking on vulnerable neighbors, especially those who rely on electricity for medical equipment or mobility support, strengthens resilience. Winter storms test not only infrastructure but coordination. A prepared community absorbs impact more effectively than isolated individuals reacting alone. Perhaps the most important principle is this: preparation loses nothing if the storm underperforms, but lack of preparation can cost greatly if it overperforms. There is no downside to caution when credible signals indicate increasing risk. There is, however, significant downside to assuming conditions will remain mild simply because they began that way. Right now, the trend suggests this winter threat is intensifying step by step. That does not guarantee extreme outcomes everywhere, but it does justify proactive thinking. Storms do not reward last-minute reaction. They reward anticipation. And while we cannot control the atmosphere, we can control readiness. In situations where change is accelerating and timing remains critical, preparation becomes the only real advantage we hold. That is why attention now matters more than reassurance. Because once conditions shift from forecast to reality, response time shortens, and preparation becomes the difference between disruption and crisis. This is a storm that deserves close attention. The trends are moving in one direction, and that direction is toward higher impact. Whether it's heavier snowfall rates, stronger wind interaction, or the possibility of ice in key corridors, this system is evolving in real time. We'll continue monitoring every model update, pressure trend, and radar development as this unfolds. If additional strengthening occurs, or the track shifts again, we'll bring you the latest information immediately. If you're in the projected impact zone, now is the time to review plans, limit unnecessary travel, and stay weather aware. Winter systems don't need to be historic to be disruptive. They only need the right timing and the right conditions. We'll keep tracking it closely.